After the Colossal Wars confirmed to the powers of Western Amoran that maintaining a force of Colossals capable of acting purely as a deterrent was far beyond the capacity for any economy to sustain. The heavy warjack, or quite simply, warjack as it was known at the time, came to the fore. The difference in size, cost and ease of maintenance, and burden upon the controlling warcasters meant warjacks were a massive step forwards in technological and military efficiency. The modular designs of even the earliest warjack chassis meant they could be equipped for any offensive or defensive role, be it siege warfare, anti-warjack, anti-infantry, or infantry support. However, as time and wars wore on, the problem of combined arms warjack and infantry warfare gradually became a solved situation, and tacticians and designers both struggled to iterate further in terms of increasing the capabilities of the warjack and mitigating its weaknesses. At its most fundamental, the problem for the various armies of Western Amoran was how to deal with the warjack as an infantryman, while still remaining mobile. In the heat of battle, waiting for it to run out of fuel was reliant on luck alone, and heavy ordnance, the sort of which could disable a warjack, was not especially portable. The technology to shock a warjack's cortex was not especially new, but there were no appropriate means of delivering it to an enemy warjack other than by another warjack, in which case it may as well have been equipped with a heavy cannon, which would also have more applications. Up until this point, in the early to mid-400s AR, most attempts to condense the warjack design had been plagued by flaws in scaling, not helped by some technological stagnation during the preceding quiet century. Indeed, most designs had no significant performance upgrades over their larger counterparts, primarily in speed and agility, but more importantly, needed to sacrifice too much armour for these meagre gains. However, mere decades later, metallurgical advances along with expansion in alchemical knowledge gave rise to newer, stronger and lighter steels. Thanks to this, the concept of a light warjack took hold among military engineers and arcanists once more. While not one of the first generation of the light warjacks to be approved for manufacture, the Talon was the first truly successful frontline light, whose role was dual purpose as infantry support and troubleshooting against enemy heavy warjacks. Designed by Engines East, the Talon was their proposal to the Cygnaran Armourer when the call was put out for a warjack standing no taller than 9 feet, weighing no more than 3 tons, able to withstand sustained small arms fire, and capable of running under full steam at a speed which exceeded that of heavy warjacks by at least 20%. The vast majority of submissions were too large, being barely any smaller than most warjacks in active service, or had no staying power in even simulated combat situations. The Talon, on the other hand, was only a fraction of a ton overweight, a fact of which seemed to have no adverse effect on its performance capabilities. Even when fitted with its earmarked equipment, a stun lance and shield, both of which were quite weighty, the Talon exceeded expectations, and it was enthusiastically accepted into service with the first production models assigned to the Cygnaran First Army in 522 AR. The Talon proved to be a popular choice for frontline warcasters, as they had a wide variety of tools at their disposal, not only for dealing with enemy battle groups, but also to support their attached infantry, whether on the attack or otherwise. In melee against heavy warjacks, they proved to be nimble enough to deflect attacks with the shield before striking back with the stun lance, for which they were an ideal platform in terms of both speed and size. This weapon provided a shock to the target's cortex signalling system, causing it to momentarily malfunction, a phenomenon which would later be refined to become stalling. This then gave the opportunity to deliver the crippling blow to the target heavy warjack, whether by the Talon itself or the soldiers or other warjacks in close proximity. This necessitated a tactical overhaul by Cygnar's rivals, as well as demand for a similar or competing technology as provided by the stun lance. Away from the battlefield, in a sense, as one of the earliest light warjacks in widespread use in the Cygnaran army, it was manufactured and sold under license to other nations as well. The sheer quantity of Talons which made their presence felt on battlefields across Western Amoran also meant mercenary captains started to be able to employ warcasters, since the purchase and repair of this warjack was very straightforward and cheap. To that end, famous Cygnaran and mercenary warcaster Asheth Magnus opined that the Talon was a veteran of more wars than the historians can count. I can salvage parts for it from battlefields across the face of Cain. Time marched on, though, and weapons and armour technology with it. The Khadorans, Menites of the Protectorate, Crixians, and even the Talon's own operators came to recognise its weaknesses as heavy warjack design changed in response to the Talon's use. Indeed, its early advantages in agility were eventually annulled by new heavies, or completely reversed by new lights. By mid-500s AR, the Talon was already starting to show the immaturity of its design, and the Cygnaran army, it was gradually supplanted in its various roles by the Charger, Sentinel, and the precursor to what would become the Lancer. Thus, in 579, after more than half a century of continuous operation in one capacity or another, the chassis was officially decommissioned, and the last remaining Talon light warjacks were withdrawn from Cygnaran's service after a period of replacement in line combat units. This did not spell the end of the Talon's influence on battlefields, though. They could still be found in Ordic and Lealese military armories for several more decades. With so much hardware surplus available in one salvage yard or another, mercenary warcasters of the late 500s and early 600s had no shortage of parts for the battle groups of Talons, modified or not, provided they had some coin to keep the acquisition process smooth. Consequently, with the proxy wars and then the struggle for Lealese independence, the number of Talons on Imri's battlefields seemingly did not reduce in the modern era. Today, though, the ubiquity of the Talon is starting to fade, and while it may be some years before the last Talon chassis is taken apart, it is long past its heyday as a cheap light warjack, bulking out the numbers in mercenary battle groups. As is inevitable, the major military powers of Morin have designed new models and consigned older ones to the list for decommissioning or even the scrap pile. These cast-offs will no doubt replace the Talon in the freelancer's inventory, as spare parts for the venerable old light become increasingly difficult to source.